What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to The Breakdown. This is the series where I analyze subscriber gameplay to help you improve. In today's episode, we're going to be breaking down a Domination gameplay on Monte Casino from Mount Olympus. First up, as always, let's have a look at the class he decided to use. So for the first round, he used this class here, and honestly, this is a very good class. I don't really see any blatant mistakes with this by any means. He's got the infantry division with Hunker, so he's got that explosive resistance, which is great. His attachments on the STG are going to be quick draw, grip, reflex, as well as extended mags. The one thing I do want to mention, it's not necessarily a mistake with this class, but just something I wanted to throw out there is the reflex sight. I feel like the reflex sight in this gameplay kind of screwed him over a little bit in close quarter situations because he wasn't able to track his targets properly because he was aiming down sight too far, because you do zoom in a bit more with a reflex sight. So personally, in this gameplay, I think he would have been better off with an iron sight on the STG, but of course, there's nothing really wrong with using a reflex sight on this gun. Now getting into the gameplay itself, I like the fact that he didn't go directly for the B flag. A lot of players, they just run straight at the B flag. It's really obvious and they're super predictable, and oftentimes you just get yourself killed running straight at the flag. I like the fact that he still took an objectively oriented route, but it was also a bit of a flank route that the enemies didn't expect. Now unfortunately he did miss this one enemy and he got himself killed on the B flag, but you can see that he really does care about the objective. He wants to get that B flag captured, and he's not just pushing straight on into the enemy's bullets. Now skipping ahead just a little bit here, him and his team ended up getting that B flag captured, but now they're losing the C flag. They're losing the home flag, and what he does is he pushes with his entire team over towards the C flag. In this situation, the priority should be holding the B flag. Home flags are really easy to capture. When you die, you usually spawn right by a home flag, and therefore you don't really have to worry about that too much. If you're holding the B flag, especially on a somewhat linear map like Monte Casino, you should be defending that with your life. And the nice thing about that is, even if he were to die defending the B flag, maybe he takes an enemy or two with him and he dies, he'll just respawn on the C flag by his teammates anyways, and then he can get in for the capture. So leaving the B flag undefended there was the wrong move in my opinion. He should have stayed there and tried to lock it down for as long as possible. His teammates would have had no problem capturing that C flag without him, and they're going to have a long fight on their hands trying to get that B flag back. Now skipping ahead once again, right here is a common mistake that he actually handled quite well after he made the mistake, and this is shooting at somebody that's going around a corner that you likely won't be able to finish off. It was pretty clear that he wouldn't be able to get this kill before that guy made it around the corner, and he would have been much better off letting that guy run around the corner and then just coming up behind him and shooting him in the back. He would have had no idea what hit him. By shooting him, you're telling him exactly where you are, and this isn't good for you at all. However, I do like the fact that he didn't chase. The worst thing he could have done here after taking that shot is chase him around that corner, because the guy's probably turning around at that point and pre-aiming, just waiting for you. Instead of chasing, he waited a little bit, he kind of backed off, and he did handle that in the right way, but in my opinion, it was a mistake to shoot at that guy in the first place. Now right after that situation, he actually goes on a little bit of a streak here. He pushes up towards the enemy spawn, he's picking off a few kills, and this is great. However, the mistake he made here, and the mistake that gets him killed, is he overstays his welcome in this area. When you're using an unsilenced gun and you're pushing up to where there's multiple enemies, you can't keep attacking from the same location. You have to rotate around a little bit, make yourself unpredictable. Otherwise, the enemies will catch on to what you're doing and you're going to get yourself killed. Now, shortly after that, he ended up losing the B flag. I really like the fact that he got back in there, especially while his teammates were distracting the enemies in their spawn. He went back there with a teammate and he captured the B flag back. However, right after he captured the B flag in this situation here, this is a terrible place to be right now. You can clearly see that there's two enemies on the minimap to his right. They can either come to that window or they can just push him on that right side on his level. There's no way of escaping those people if they come around that corner. He's not in a position to duck back behind that tank at all because he's got it right beside him. So if he strafes to the left, he's just going to run into the tank. So he's essentially put himself in a no-win situation here. In my opinion, he would have been much better off either pushing those enemies and just being aggressive on them, or backing off just a little bit so that he at least had the option to strafe back behind the tank if those enemies decided to attack him. Instead, he got himself caught out there and it didn't work out too well for him. Now this brings us to the second round, and in the second round he actually switched to an SMG class, which I think was a good move on his part. Throughout the gameplay, I feel like the STG wasn't really doing him too well. He was getting into a lot of close quarters fights, and therefore he would have been much better off with an SMG. With this particular class setup, he's using the Thompson, and the big change that I would make to this class, if it were me at least, is I would drop that reflex sight, since you don't really need a reflex sight in close quarters. Especially with a Thompson, you're not going to be challenging people at super long ranges, at least not effectively. I would have dropped that for extended mags, which would have freed up my basic training. You wouldn't have needed hustle at that point, because you won't have to reload nearly as often. And that would have freed up his basic training. He could have used that on something else that could be slightly more effective for him. Now, throughout the beginning of the second round, the enemies got that early capture on the B flag, and him and his teammates made several unsuccessful pushes towards B. It wasn't working out for him, so his teammates actually flanked around and made a really smart move. They went for the enemy team's home flag, which is A. Now, the reason this is a smart move is it keeps the enemy team distracted, and it frees you up to attack the B flag. MtOlympus pushed straight for that A flag and tried to defend the A flag, and what he actually did here is he flipped the spawns back towards C. This was a really bad move that actually cost them the C flag, and then shortly after the B flag as well. Instead, if he would have just backed off and attacked the B flag with his teammates, the enemies would have captured the A flag, which is fine because that would have secured the spawn for them, and then MtOlympus' team would have had the map control to lock them in their A spawns. Instead of locking them in the spawn, they flipped the spawns, things got a little chaotic, they lost map control, and then shortly after, they ended up losing the B flag. So in Domination, especially on the more linear maps where there's a linear flag layout, you always want to make it your goal to lock down the B flag first, that's always a priority, as well as a home flag. It's often most beneficial to let the enemy team hold a home flag because that makes their spawns predictable, and it allows you to lock things down without getting shot in the back constantly. If you're always flipping spawns, you're mixing things up too much, and you're making things unpredictable and uncontrollable. I do also want to mention though that it's not just him that was doing this, his teammates were doing this a ton this game. They were going for that triple cap, they were going for the home flag, not just as a distraction, but just because they wanted the captures, and this made things way too chaotic and hard to control. Now towards the end of the gameplay here, this is what he should have been doing basically the entire time. He's locking down the B flag, and this is awesome. He's really controlling it, he's making it his mission to simply defend the B flag. If he would have been doing this the entire game, I actually am pretty confident they would have won the game, because that's really all his team needed, was some proper control at the B flag throughout the entire game. And that's pretty much the main points I wanted to cover with this breakdown. The overall point I'm trying to make here, and this is a really common mistake I see with a lot of players in Domination, is they're constantly going for as many captures as possible, whether that be A, B, or C. When you're playing on linear maps, it's all about controlling the B flag. Use the home flags for spawn prediction, use the home flags to control spawns a little bit, but if you're not holding that B flag, it's pretty much impossible to win a game on a linear map. So with that, we're going to be wrapping up today's episode. By the way, I just wanted to mention that MtOlympus does live stream on Twitch. I will leave a link to his Twitch channel below, and I'll do the same for anybody's gameplay that I break down. If you're a YouTuber or a live streamer and I end up analyzing your gameplay, I will always try my best to leave a link to your channel down below. Also, I just wanted to point out, guys, I've got about 100 gameplays now submitted for this series, so at the moment, I don't really need any more gameplays. If you want to send them, I will leave a link to the email address down below. Feel free to send them. Just make sure they're raw gameplay, HD, no music, no commentary over them. But just keep in mind, I've got a big backlog of gameplays to go through, so it'll be quite some time before I get to any new gameplays, if I even make it to any of the newer gameplays before Black Ops 4 launches. So if you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.